So many thanks to the ITA for inviting us to share a brief 5-minute overview of some of the projects that we've been working on. And as we do, I will share a little bit of a visual so that we can follow together some of these projects. All right, so background. I think we've all seen in the last several years greater attention to inclusivity, representation in the context of increased global integration. So we have, on the one hand, increased sort of proximity, need for collaboration across borders, but also this recognition of the diversity of perspectives that enrich our global society. And so how do we bring these two together, both in the design of our global cross-border legal instruments, but also in the administration and practice and rendering of decisions? And a lot of this, I think, is inspired by various observations about sort of changes that are taking place in the world. I think some of the work I recently read that I found very helpful was Jose Alvarez talked about horizontal and vertical representational deficits that we need to overcome or think about addressing when we are looking at global legal institutions. So really this idea of inclusivity and collaboration has been the center of a lot of the recent projects that I'll explain in the next couple of slides. They have to do with looking at how we expand participation in design of global legal instruments, how we study even the field of cross-border dispute resolution, and how we address, say, infrastructure disputes with communities and achieve outcomes that reflect the needs and interests of all parties and stakeholders. Okay, so the first project I'll talk a little bit about is called Forming Transnational Dispute Settlement Norms. This was published in 2021 by Edward Elgar. This one looks at the effort by UNCITRAL, the UN Commission on International Trade Law, to begin in 2012 an effort to establish regional centers of its global lawmaking body to really expand access points for regional stakeholders to contribute ideas, innovation, knowledge into what we then sort of synthesize in the development of model laws and instruments. So this began in 2012, and the first center that was set up was in Incheon in Korea. And so the project looks at the impact of this regional center. It looks through participation logs of UNCITRAL Working Group 2 meetings to see whether those expanded, increased, decreased as a result of this regional presence, how local innovations were or were not incorporated into global exploration of design of instruments. And so the basic outcome and the main takeaway of this project was that, yes, these regional centers do work. They do have a positive impact in expanding access to global legal forums. They did result in this sort of idea of decentralized, though transnational legal ordering. So not so much a turn to regionalism, but really a turn to internationalism, drawing more deeply and more richly on the diversity of actors at the global level. And so one of the conclusions is that it's useful and encouraging to think about the expansion of these in other continental groupings, which may have had less access to UN Secretariat venues, whether it's New York or Vienna. So we have continental groupings that could be very helpful to establish such centers. The other project, which was a collaborative project, this worked with a number of individuals who study cross-border dispute resolution. This is really looking at how do we look at the field of comparative and transnational dispute resolution, what's being learned about the methods that we use and how those methods impact advancement of policy or advancement of design of dispute resolution instruments at the national level. And so this was really, it benefit from perspectives. The contributors are listed here, you'll see. A really wonderful group of scholars who really enriched this project and shared insights into how they were looking at the field from the perspective of method. Okay, the next project is looking at the actual administration or the rendering of awards in international arbitration. This was a lot of fun to work with. Giorgio Colombo was the one who spearheaded this, as well as Josh Carton and Philip Balcerek. And this again drew on a number of experienced arbitrators from around the world to look at why and how and in what way sort of representation within arbitral tribunals advances quality of awards. And how do we sustain that? How are we enriched by that? Not just as a target or a benchmark, but really what is the principle or underlying value of diversity? All right, so the last project I'll touch on is more recent work, and this is part of a current research project that I'm involved in, which is looking at dispute mitigation in the context of multilateral development bank infrastructure projects and their interface with local communities. And so there's been a significant amount of learning in this space over the last 25, 30 years. Significant advancement in terms of how communities are engaged and how their views are integrated into the design of these projects, and a lot of sharing among multilateral development banks in terms of best practices. So one of the things that we noticed over the last, say, 10 years or so is this increasing requirement that consultation and grievance mechanisms exist at the outset or start of a project. That wasn't so much the case, say, 20 years ago. And so the question is, now that you have more access points to lodge grievances, to make claims or to share input, is that going to expand the number of grievances or is it going to reduce them? That was the question in this project. And the result or the outcome was that at this point, when we saw there was a increased attention to expanding these mechanisms, we did see a fall or a decline overall in the number of grievances lodged. And this was across 10 multilateral development banks throughout the world. So this is encouraging. I think it's confirming that the direction of these banks is correct, and hopefully this will be also a great model for national banks, which are increasingly involved in cross-border infrastructure to really take seriously the engagement and participation of local community actors in major projects that affect their space, well-being, environment, etc. So that's really it. One of the lessons or key takeaways, is that this inclusivity, this attention to collaboration is really a strengthening feature in all of these, both at the macro and micro levels. Another takeaway that I think is important, sometimes it's easy to kind of conflate diversity with regionalism or polarity. And I think that's really kind of the opposite of what I've been looking at in this research, is that actually inclusivity, decentralization aims at not sort of enhancing parochialism or solidifying regional blocks kind of approaches, but really at strengthening global institutions by facilitating sort of an ability to draw on the rich diversity of perspectives that can enrich the outcomes and the instruments and the decisions that we make collectively. So it's really not a turn towards separateness, but a turn towards wholeness, drawing on diversity. So I hope that makes sense. And I'd love to be in touch with you. If you have any questions about any of this work, please do email me. This is my email. And thank you so much again to the ITA for making this space available for us. And I look forward to hearing about others' work in the coming series. Thanks so much.